Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Gillibrand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to continue Senator Fisher's line of questions with regard to Iran. If this was a 3-year of talks, how recent was China engaged in those talks?
Ma'am, my understanding is in the last several months.
Well, obviously that raises serious concerns because I just joined a delegation to visit the Abraham Accords countries, and the interest of those countries, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Israel, is to broaden and strengthen the Abraham Accords, and they were hopeful that they could engage Saudi Arabia in that context. This seems to me that would make that extremely problematic, because if China is involved, it would be very difficult to have the kind of technology shared in the Abraham Accords if they are now in alliance with China. And second, if they are in an alliance with Iran, the whole point of the Abraham Accords is to counter Iran's malign threats. So does this make the possibility of extending or expanding the Abraham Accords impossible? And what do you recommend that this committee do to focus on how we create more regional alliances?
So ma'am, I believe this is the talks about opening diplomatic relations, so much as this is not an alliance between Saudi Arabia and Iran. They have had diplomatic relations in the past while they were still shooting at each other in the past. So this is really about opening embassies and opening diplomatic relations when they closed the embassies back in 2016. What this does do, though, is with China, the most concerning part about this is that China is the one brokering this, because it shows that they are bringing the diplomatic aspect of their national instruments of power. And what we see with China on the military side is that they have a significant increase in bringing their equipment into the region and their foreign military sales. And if there's Chinese equipment there, we cannot integrate it with U.S. equipment. And so as we try and build the regional partnerships, and we've been there for the last 75 years, when we try and build these regional partnerships, you want to be able to integrate with your partner. And if there's Chinese equipment there, we are not going to be able to integrate it.
Understood. Can you, in this setting, give us more detail on where China has integrated its equipment in the region?
China has sold equipment all over the region inside the Middle East, and I can take that for the record and give you a specific follow-up for that, ma'am.
And then do you have a focused plan on what to do about that?
So one of this is to increase our partnership with these elements. So again, this is a race to integrate before China can penetrate.
And would you recommend expanding and deepening the Abraham Accords?
I would, ma'am.
Thank you. With regard to Afghanistan, I'd like an update on what we are doing to get our partners out and whether those operations are continuing, and what are the barriers that you're facing currently?
So, ma'am, getting the partners out the special immigrant visas, that is a State Department-run program, but from the U.S., from the military side, we are responsible for bringing them into a place called Camp Asaliya in Qatar. We currently have about 2,600 there right now. We provide the in-processing, the security, and the basic life support. The State Department runs the actual immigrant visa side. They're averaging about 60 days there before they are moved on. And my understanding right now in the pipeline is about 85,000 special immigrant visas, but I would defer to the State Department on the exact number.
Again, with regard to Iran, we know that Russia and Iran have escalated their military cooperation over the last year. How is CENTCOM coordinating with EUCOM to ensure that our forces are able to respond to threats that touch both areas of responsibilities?
So I talk to Chris Cavoli often, the EUCOM commander in the SAC-UR. We have done several operations that I can talk about in a classified setting to create the additional dilemmas for Russia.
And then my last question for you, sir, is you activated the U.S. Space Force Central, which is responsible for space operations within the CENTCOM area of responsibility. How are you incorporating the space domain into planning and training so that your subordinate commanders can effectively integrate space into their operations?
We think this is a very big positive of actually having a component of Space Force. Space has always played a large role in the CENTCOM AOR, but now I have a commander that sits at the table that is able to then integrate more effectively because he has a seat at the table to be able to do that. And we just finished a large with all the combatant commands in the region to talk about the lessons we've learned over the last decade of doing space operations in CENTCOM.
Thank you. General Langley, despite the size and growing importance of the continent, the 21st century wars in CENTCOM, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the strategic competition with China have dominated much of our focus on this committee. What might we be missing about Africa that you think this committee should take note of in the coming years?
So I would say just the aspirations of China. The aspirations of China is threefold. One from a geopolitical. They're trying to change international norms. And they're using some of the African countries within the UN construct, whether it be General Assembly or the Security Council, trying to affect votes to change those international norms and the international system writ large. And then there's a geostrategic operation. Our aspirations for military bases on the continent of Africa. Just talking to my African partners, they don't want to be militarized in a strategic sense. And the last piece, Senator, is geoeconomic. Our future economy is dependent upon a number of rare earth minerals. And also some of our clean energy technologies depend upon the rare earth minerals. About 30 to 40% of those minerals are on the continent of Africa. That's forward thinking by the PRC. They're trying to harvest and leverage upon that through shaky deals, engaging with some of these countries so they can corner the market, if you will. That's what I'm concerned about, Senator.